You're listening to the Morphology Podcast. Thanks for tuning into the Morphology Podcast, aka Murph here to share interviews about biking experiences from cyclists who have pedaled to places all over. Each episode, we'll get to know new people and explore new destinations to ride your bike. As you listen to these adventures, you may wonder, why haven't I done that yet? Today, meet Taylor Nichols from the Bike Talk podcast. Taylor is currently over 2,800 miles into a cross-country solo bike trip from his daughter's home in San Francisco to his father's home in Michigan. He has his Surly Midnight Special steel bicycle loaded up and has been utilizing some great adventure cycling bicycle trails like the Pacific Coast, TansAmerican, the Lewis and Clark, and is currently pedaling on the Northern Tier. I caught up with Taylor on his overnight stop in Fargo, and we chatted about long-distance cycling and some of the challenges that go along with it. You can listen to Bike Talk Podcast at biketalk.org or on any podcast platform. Here's my interview with Taylor. All right, a very warm welcome to Taylor Nichols from the Bike Talk Podcast. Hey, Taylor.
Hey, Kathy Murphy.
How are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
Good. We chatted a little bit before pushing record, and I know, you're living in luxury tonight, which has not been the case every night. But not only do we have one thing in common, we have two things, probably more, but off the top of my head, not only are we both podcast hosts, you're with Bike Talk Podcast, you are also in the middle of riding your bike across the United States, which everyone that listens to this podcast know that I did that. I did the Southern Tier. You are doing what?
I started off doing the Pacific Coast route from San Francisco north up to Oregon. And then I did the Trans Am route from Oregon through into Montana. And then I did the Lewis and Clark route through Montana. And now I'm on the Northern Tier route in North Dakota.
Okay. So before we get into this epic adventure, will you tell everybody where is home, when you're not cycling across the United States? And is there a cycling culture there?
Yes. I'm from Los Angeles, and I'm an actor by trade. And people rag on LA a lot. It's really funny. As I've been traveling across Montana and North Dakota, and I meet people and they go, oh, LA, oh, is it safe or it's so dangerous or whatever. And LA is a combination of a whole bunch of small little different cities put together. And there is a very big bike culture there, which is really wonderful. It has fought uphill. What's the guy's name who pushes the rock up the hill? I think it's Sisyphus and or something like that. And that's what bike culture in LA is like, because the car still is king in LA. We have highways and arterial streets that are, completely about the car. But there is a bike culture, and it's actually beautiful, and I'm proud of it, actually.
Awesome. And have you always been into cycling, or did it just kind of spur up as an adult, or how did that come to be?
That's a great question. Because I think like most people, I cycled. I rode my bike as a kid. I grew up in Michigan and rode my bike everywhere and all that. And when in college, I rode my bike. And then I moved to New York, and I really started riding my bike in New York. I lived there for about 10 years, and I worked at a bike store on the Upper West Side, and I just got very involved in the bike world there. In Central Park, I did a little bit of racing. Messengers would always come into the bike shop where I worked, and I just became really, I don't know, I kind of fell in love with the people who bike and the different kinds of bikes. The guy who was the manager of the store that I worked at was this real crazy guy who smoked cigarettes, but he loved to talk about bikes, and he built guitars and he built bicycles. And his name was Paul Martin. And he taught me so much about the bike industry and the bike culture and the bike itself. It really is a beautiful tool. I mean, you've ridden across the country. You know that you can carry 50 pounds of gear on your bike. And when the bike is moving, it doesn't feel like anything.
Right. I don't know if you can say that after, 60 days or 70 days, but actually,
how many days was your trip?
63, I believe. And we had taken 4 days off. So we averaged right around 50 miles a day. So it wasn't super, super, super strenuous. We had a lot of downtime every day, but we were raising money for Alzheimer's. So we had specific events happening about every 10 days. So we couldn't really go ahead, we maybe could get some extra miles on a certain day, but then we would have less time, on the bike the following day. So how about you? Yeah. Are you just on the fly?
It's really interesting to hear you say that you did it for a cause. One of the fun things about these cross-country trips, as you know, is you meet people doing the same thing. And I've met a few people on this trip who are doing that. One is this 71-year-old woman, Kay Schuster, who did the first cross-country trip not the first, but, the 1976 Trans Am trip.
Oh, yeah.
When she was 21, and she's doing it again now when she's 71.
Wow.
And she's raising money for kids who need food. So it's her site is K Bikes for Kids. And I am not doing that. And I thought about it and I wondered about it, and I sort of just wanted to have my own experience of traveling across the country and not feel like I needed to promote it some way or another. Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense.
For sure, yeah. And, that's a good segue to the next question, which is, how did the type, so you've been biking for a while in New York and in LA, and then, of course, growing up, but how did the topic of, I want to do this epic adventure, 4,000 miles, bike across the United States, how did that go from a vision or a dream to you're doing it? Now it's happening right now.
Well, I said earlier that I'm an actor, and people always tease actors of like the best way to get a job is to plan a trip. And when you plan a trip and you buy a ticket, then you get a job. And so I planned this trip and I didn't get a job.
So you're like, I guess I got to do it.
Exactly. I guess I got to do it. No, to be honest with you, it's something that I've wanted to do for a long time. And May and June, which is the time that I'm traveling, are good times to leave Los Angeles if you're an actor, because there's not that much work. And so I chose this period of time. And my daughters live in San Francisco. They're 23 and 25. And my father, who's 101, lives in the house I grew up in Lansing, Michigan. And so I just had this idea that I'll ride from my daughters to my dad. And it's been a really wonderful experience. It's brought our whole family together a little bit, the cousins and uncles and aunts and nephews and nieces and brothers and fathers and children. And, we all sort of text back and forth, every couple of days about where I am and how I'm doing and what's the weather and all that kind of stuff. And so it's really been a fun sort of experience, while not being a movement-driven experience. I'm not doing it for Alzheimer's, which I think is a beautiful reason. My mother died of that. And so I think that's really great that you did that to raise awareness, and I imagine money also.
Yes, yep.
So I've just been doing it sort of for our family and sort of for myself, actually, as selfish as that sounds.
Oh, it's not at all, because, if you don't do it now, when will you? You know what I mean? Like
Right.
you can say I'll do it in
Are you
10
calling me
years.
old? Is that what you're saying? I mean,
No.
you're saying I'm old?
I'm assuming you're like 35. Well, no, if you have a 25-year-old daughter, no, you're not old. Am I stuttering? No, you're not old.
Remove your foot from your mouth. No, I'm teasing.
I will tell you, my friend Clarence just turned 100 and he rides his bike every single day. Now, I don't think
Wow.
he's going to ride his bike across the United States, but he's considering whether or not he's going to ride his bike across Iowa at the end of July.
Wow. For
So
Ragbri.
yeah, so there is no age restriction on riding a bicycle.
No, you're right. And that's wonderful to hear because at 100, it's hard to start and stop on the bike.
Yeah.
Biking is one thing, but starting and stopping is the difficult thing.
Yep, for sure. So, okay, so you are currently on this adventure, right?
Yes.
Okay, so how far have you gone and how far do you still have to go?
I've gone about 2,800 miles.
Oh, wow.
I went from San Francisco up the coast, which was tough, actually. Going up the California coast into Oregon and up the Oregon coast was hard. A lot of ups and downs and a lot of headwinds. Going south to north is a little bit against the prevailing winds. Not totally, but a little bit. And so that was just tough. And then I turned east at Florence, Oregon, and I've been going west to east since then. And the winds have been better. And I'm, like I said, 2,800 miles in, and I think I'll do about 3,800 miles total in the end.
Wow. And you said you started this in May?
I started May 15th. Yep.
Okay. And describe to us, just so we can understand it, like, what does your bike look like? I'm assuming that you are carrying all your gear, or do you have a support vehicle with you?
No, I'm carrying everything. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, so describe, like, do you have bags with stuff in it, or like I call it self-contained, but give us a little bit of an idea of what it looks like.
Okay. Well, I've been biking a long time, so I have a lot of bikes. But I bought this bike. It's a Surly Midnight Special. I bought it about 3 years ago with this trip in mind, because I like steel bikes. I just, even my good, quote unquote racing bike is a steel bike. It's a 7. And I have an old Bianchi that I bought when I lived in Aspen, Colorado. This is actually a funny story. I bought it off of a drug dealer in Aspen, Colorado in 1984. And he said to me, if you keep biking, you will either quit doing drugs or quit biking. And I can only answer by saying I'm still biking.
That's awesome. And you still have the bike.
And I still have the bike. Yes, I've had the bike. And in fact, one time I said to my wife, I think I've had a longer relationship with that bike than I have with you. And she didn't like that.
I also have quite a few bikes, and I would say the majority of them are steel. So I'm a big fan of steel as well. So yeah. Okay, so we know your bike. I was just going to say that. Yeah. Okay, so we know your bike is steel. How do you have things hanging off your bike? Are they in panniers, or are they
I've got a rack
bike?
on the back. Yeah, I've got a rack on the back with 2 panniers on the back. And that has my clothes and my food in the panniers. And then on top of the rack, on top of the panniers, I have a dry sack that has my camping gear, my tent, my sleeping pad, my sleeping bag, and my pillow. And that is bungee cord onto the rack on top of the panniers. And then in the front, I have 2 fork packs that are Ortlieb fork packs. And in one, I have water and tools, and the other I have water and my electronics. I have a charging bank and cables and all that kind of bull stuff that we need at this day and age. And then I have a handlebar bag that has a flashlight and snacks, and I don't have a big lot, but I am carrying a very small little lock that if I need to lock the bike, that's in that handlebar bag, and just stuff that I need to grab during the day.
We always were laughing when we would be doing, fully self-contained tours that if somebody were to steal your bike, they wouldn't get very far because it's so darn heavy and it's hard to balance. You have to learn how to ride it.
Totally. Yeah. It's funny. The only place that I really lock the bike up is at night. And when I'm in a campsite, I lock it up, even though I'm sure no one is going to bother it.
Mm-hmm.
But I just sleep better knowing that no one's going to come by and mess with it or whatever. And believe me, if someone wanted to steal it, they could probably cut the lock with scissors.
Sure.
But it just keeps someone just from kind of messing with me or whatever. But when I go into a grocery store or a market of some kind or whatever, I just leave the bike outside and it is always fine.
Mm-hmm.
People are so respectful of bike travel in that part of the travel.
Mm-hmm.
When you're outside a store. When you're on a road, it's a different story.
Right. Right. So, okay, that's a great segue to the next question I was going to ask. You've given hints about going into grocery stores, about camping, maybe an occasional hotel, but describe a typical day for us. Like, do you get up, make some coffee? Do you do yoga? Do you just jump on your bike? Do you go how many breakfasts do you have a day? All of that good stuff.
That's a great one because breakfast is such a good food
Yes.
when you're biking. Because it's the longest time of the year day-wise, because it's late June, and the roads are so good in the evening. I have been riding until 8:39, even 9:30 at night. And I've been keeping a journal. And I even say in my journal, once again, I made the right choice of continuing on another 20 miles after, 7:00 at night.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. And I would ride until 9 at night and then, get into a campsite and set up my tent and throw my stuff in the tent and make a little dinner and, go to bed at like 11 when it's really finally dark.
Sure.
And then because I'm going to bed so late and riding late, I'm actually sleeping in the morning a little bit. I don't wake up early. I sleep till 8 and maybe I stay in bed until 8:30 or
Nice.
not in bed, but in the tent.
Mm-hmm.
And then I get up and I make coffee and oatmeal and I leave at 10 o'clock, so I'm not really out of the campsite early.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's because I'm just riding late. And it's also really nice to, like this morning, I was in Enderlin, North Dakota, and it was pouring raining. And I just stayed in my tent until it stopped raining.
Yeah.
And then I got up and made coffee and let the tent dry out and turned out to be a beautiful day.
Mm-hmm. And that's the beauty of, you don't have a set plan each day. You're just like, I'm going to stay in my tent till it stops raining and maybe mess around on my phone to figure out a good spot to stop tonight and see how it goes.
Exactly. Yeah.
I love it. Give us a couple of really good highlights that you want to share about maybe people you've met, places you've been, just any highlights.
Well, Kay has to be one of the highlights because I really learned a lot from her at her age. And she has been very good about asking for help. And that's a thing that I don't do easily. And I think a lot of people don't do easily, but is something that is such a part of a trip like this, of knowing when to ask for help. And because she's 71 and she weighs probably 105 pounds, she's struggled over some of the mountain passes, and she has struggled in some of the sections where the traffic is tough and there's no shoulder. So she hasn't hesitated to ask either friends or people from warm showers or people that she meets on the road to help her get over this mountain pass or to help her get past this stretch. And I think that's one of the really great lessons that I think I will take with me in life, of knowing when to ask for help. So that's one of the highlights. The other one is realizing that along with the lows come the highs. And it's very easy to get stuck into, and again, I think this is in life also, this low period. I'm not working much. I'm not making enough money. I'm, any number of different things that might make you feel low in your life. But that's only temporary, because a high is just around the corner.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well said. And speaking of lows, I know that actually today you spent some time in a bicycle shop. How about, and maybe it wasn't because of a low, maybe you were just wanted to go check out a bike shop, but have you had any issues, either mechanical or, you talked about it raining one morning, but any crazy weather? I guess, traffic is always going to be a low.
Traffic is always a low.
Yeah. But anything else you want to talk about?
Well, first I would say, just bringing up the idea of mechanicals, you should put the phone down and stand up and turn around 3 times and hop on your foot and say, please take that back.
Okay, let me do that right now.
Because no, I've been very lucky. I have not had many mechanical problems at all. The reason I went to the bike store today was because my front shifter, going from the small chain ring to the big chain ring, has become stuck. And the guys at the bike store, it was really a beautiful bike store here in Fargo called Great Northern Bicycle Company, were very good and took it right away. They didn't say you have to come back on Tuesday. They were really helpful, but they also didn't fix it. And so I don't know what the problem is. And it's really a struggle to shift from the small chain ring to the big chain ring in the front. And so that's just something that I'm just going to have to keep working on. But no, I've been very lucky. The Surly has held up really well, and my equipment has held up really well. I'm very pleased with it.
And so speaking of your equipment, the stuff you have, you described what you have on your bike. I've always asked people this when they do large adventure tours. Are you carrying any luxury items, like something you don't need, but you still carry it for comfort or just because?
Wow, that's such an interesting question. I am definitely carrying things that I don't need. But they're not really luxury items. The only luxury item that I carry sometimes is when I know I'm going to stop and camp in an area where there is nothing around. There's no store or anything like that. I will buy a beer 15 or even 20, 30 miles away from where I'm stopping and put the beer in my bag so that when I get to my campsite in the middle of nowhere, I can have a beer while I'm setting up my tent.
Okay, I consider that a luxury, but
yes, I do too.
I used to carry, it was pretty small, but it was a notebook, to write notes on, not really journaling, but just kind of keep notes so I could help remember afterwards. And even though I have that ability in my phone, a notes app, there was something about physically writing it and being able to look at even my handwriting, brought back a lot of memories. And there were days when that notebook, I'm like, where am I going to put this? I can't remember where I used to keep it, or, it would get jumbled up in the act of packing and repacking. And
sure.
But to me, it was important. So it's a luxury.
Yeah. I do the same thing. I have a journal and I carry it with me, and I often forget which pannier it's in. So I have to open them both.
Yeah.
But I think that's a very important luxury item.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Okay, so you say that you are journaling, and I also think, actually, I know that you're also documenting some of this via your podcast. So we got to get into your podcast and give us the scoop on what it's about, where people can find it, and how you're documenting this trip via the podcast.
Well, the podcast is called Bike Talk, and it's available at biketalk.org, but also on Spotify and Apple Music and wherever anyone listens to stuff. And Nick Richard started it. He's my partner. He started the podcast a long time ago on underground radio, before there was even podcasts. And I joined it just before COVID, so in about 2019. And it is, I'm really proud of the show. It is mostly bike advocacy, but we talk to anybody who bikes, authors who have written books about racing or biking or touring, or we talk to politicians who are, putting bills forward about safe streets and things like that. And we talk to advocates. And it's really a wonderful show. And because it's a radio show also, we are confined a little bit to the requirements of being on the radio, meaning that we can't swear very much. And it has to be 58 minutes long. And we can't really support one candidate over another candidate and things like that. But I think that also gives us a little bit more discipline in the show. I do listen to a lot of bike podcasts and urban podcasts and safe street podcasts. And some of them are quite good, but others ramble too much for me. And so we work hard at keeping Bike Talk brisk and making it, we usually have 2 interviews each show. And that would be an interview with a New York Times columnist or an author or a journalist or a politician or someone who did a study about bike lanes somewhere. And then Nick and I kind of talk about the news and about what else is going on in the world. We drop each Thursday, again, at biketalk.org or on Spotify or Apple Music. And then it plays on the radio over the weekend in like 16 markets around the country. So as you know, it's difficult to keep finding enough stories to tell that you have enough information to really tell that story. And I hope that your listeners will check it out because we're proud of the show.
Yeah, and since you're broadcasting it in different areas of the country, do you keep a focus on? It's probably not on California or LA. It's probably just on the United States or the world. Or do you have a genre of topics?
Well, the genre is really anything bike.
Okay.
Anything bike oriented. Nick, my partner, Nick Richard, is in Massachusetts. So he kind of covers the East Coast, and I'm in Los Angeles, and I kind of cover the West Coast. And I do think we tend to focus most on New York City and what's going on there, and Los Angeles and what's going on there. But we also talk about stories that are happening anywhere. I think I don't know if it was Cedar Rapids where you are, but it was somewhere in Iowa that had free buses. And they talked about the city paying for the buses and making them free. Oh. And we did a story on that. And, so wherever there's an interesting story about urbanism or biking, we try to cover it. And we reach out to the people that are involved in that story and ask them to be on the show.
I love it. I'm on the biketalk.org website, and there is a photograph of 2 men on a tandem bike. And I'm going to guess one of them is you.
Yeah, guess which one.
I'm going to guess you are the one steering.
You're right, yeah.
It just seems like you would be someone looking at the camera rather than up at the sky like the other guy's doing.
I don't know if that's a compliment or not, but you're right.
It's definitely a compliment.
Our website is not that good, and neither Nick nor I are very talented or motivated in making it better, which is too bad. But I'm glad that you're there and you can see some of our shows and interviews.
Yeah, and we'll put that link in our show notes as well as any more information that you want to share about it. But before we wrap it up, do you have, this might be putting you on the spot, but any, let's call it high level advice that you would offer somebody when it comes to planning, fueling, executing an event or an adventure like what you're doing right now?
Yes, I would. I have struggled with navigating the online information, whether it be through adventure cycling, or whether it be through Ride GPS, or whether it be through Komoot. I've struggled with navigating all of that online information and knowing how to plan my trip. And I did not want to overplan this trip. I did not want to say, on this day you have to be here, on this day you have to be there. I really wanted to give myself time to explore and be more adventurous. But I think anybody who is setting out to do a trip like this, and I hope all of your listeners do, because RAGBRAI in itself is really wonderful, but that is sort of planned for you. And there's something about doing it where you plan it yourself that is unique. But take the time ahead of time to figure out how to use ChatGPT or Komoot or Ride GPS or Adventure Cycling to figure out how you want to plan your route. Because it makes a big difference when you get into a town like Fargo or Bismarck on a bike path as opposed to on the arterial road that is full of traffic. And the information is out there if the rider is able to access it and utilize it to their advantage.
And it can be very time consuming, because that information might be out there, but it's who knows where. It could be on a community website. It could be on a government website. It could be on what you said, adventure cycling. But what a difference it makes when you're on a bike-friendly road versus like we were in California and the only route was on, I can't remember, highway or Interstate 10, I think it was called, where the speed limit's 75 and we're on the shoulder. It's a nice, 15-foot wide shoulder, but the noise was like crazy.
Yeah.
So you're so right. Being able to do the research ahead of time, you can still be flexible, even if well, this is where I want to go. How fast or slow you go is up to you.
Right, exactly. And I think you're totally right. The information is out there. You just have to figure it out and plan accordingly. Because sometimes riding on the freeway is the only way to get there. And you may feel safe because the shoulder's so wide, but you're totally right. The noise is awful.
Yeah. Think back to what was the gal's name that did the 19 or the 17? I'm sorry, the 19.
Okay.
Was it 1976?
Yeah, 19. She did it. She did the first TransAmerica ride with adventure cycling in 1976 when she was 21. Yeah.
So think about her and what maps were like back then. Well, of course you didn't have phones. If you took a wrong turn, like, did anybody come looking for them? Like, it just would be an interesting, hopefully she gave you some stories because that would be really interesting to hear.
Yeah, she did. And they were wonderful. And when I asked her what the big difference was between 1976 and 2026, she said traffic.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I can
and
see
that's what we talk about on Bike Talk all the time is how do we get out of this auto normativity world that we're in where everything is built around the car? Because one of the things that I'm trying to prove with my ride, and you certainly did with your ride, is that it's possible to ride from San Francisco, where your daughter lives, to Michigan, where your dad lives. And not that anyone needs to do that, but if I can do that, then maybe other people can ride to the store to get their groceries, or ride to the bank, or ride to the coffee shop, or ride to school, or ride to work.
And I would add to that, if somebody tries it, to note their stress level and their feelings, because typically you have a lot more enjoyable ride when you can do it at 15 miles an hour instead of 45.
Absolutely. Well, the book I'm going to write, I think, after my journey is At the Speed of Observation.
Oh,
And
very
that's
good.
one of the really great things about a bicycle is you really observe everything. And it's also not like walking where you're going 3 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're going 11 miles an hour or 12 miles an hour. And you really are able to see so much more than at 3 miles an hour. And you're able to see so much more than at 70 miles an hour.
Yes. Yeah. Will you come back on the show when you have your or your book completed?
I would love to. And I would love to do Ragbri, which I've never done.
Oh gosh, yes. You definitely need to put that on your bike it list once you're complete. Do you have anything on the horizon after you hit Michigan and see your father?
No. I had thought maybe I would ride back, but my wife said no.
Right.
Fly back.
Enough is enough.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Will you tell the listeners one more time how they can access your podcast?
Absolutely. It's called Bike Talk, and it's available at biketalk.org or on Spotify or on Apple Music or really any platform where you listen to things. It's just Bike Talk, and it's Nick Richard and myself. And it's not really us, it's our guests are the star of the show.
Yeah. And is that where people can go if they kind of want to keep track of where you are on your adventure?
That, and also I'm on Instagram at taylornichols.bikelife.
Easy enough. Well, thank you so much, Taylor. And thanks for taking some time, because I'm sure biking every day, you know, maybe you enjoy talking to somebody for a change, but I'm sure you're ready for bed.
Well, it beats talking to myself, which you often do when you're on a bike in the middle of nowhere.
That's right. Well, thank you so much.
Absolutely, Kathy. Thank you so much.
Well, that's it for this episode. Email me at murphologypodcast@gmail.com if you have a topic or the name of a cyclist you find interesting. Support my podcast at patreon.com/murphology. Visit my Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and website for daily entertainment. I have more great episodes in the pipeline, so keep on listening to the Murphology Podcast.